Thank you. I do have some handouts that I have at my desk. If you'd like one afterwards, I'll be here. It's got some good tips and information for you. Very quick on background, most of my full-time working career has been spent as in-house legal counsel for 2 companies in North County. During that time, I also worked part-time for the Escondido Police Department. 10 years in patrol, one of those in gang enforcement. In the past 2.5 years, I've been assigned to the Detective Bureau in Financial Crimes and Fraud. And as a result of working some of these fraud cases, I decided to change my full-time career and become a private fiduciary. And my caseload consists of identity theft, check and credit card fraud, embezzlements, various fraud scams, and financial elder abuse. I took a few notes that I'll try and get to from the other speakers, and I'll throw this out as well. I'm giving you a very abbreviated version of my presentation, but if you belong to an organization or a group that you think would benefit from this, I'd be pleased to give this to you, to that group, garden club, Rotary, church groups, whatever it might be. In the longer version, we'd get more details on this, but pretty much everybody is a target. And they can get your information from a whole bunch of places. The internet, Ancestry.com, Facebook, if you use that, if you're not on private. If you just Google your name or throw it into one of the search engines, you'd probably be surprised on what you'll find on yourself. Information, one of the most vulnerable places that people in this group would be interested in are medical records. When you go to a doctor's office, buzz through that, any of these items here are considered personal identifying information and can be taken. And a lot of that information goes on medical records when you go to the doctor's office or whatever. I don't give my Social Security number when I go to the doctor's office if I'm going to somewhere new. You don't have to give that. And unfortunately, we'll talk about it a little bit down the line, but that information is gold among the identity thieves. That's traded at a high premium because you can get, actually it's this one here. Well, let me go back here. I'm trying to kind of condense this, I apologize. The classic view of an identity thief is they're taking your identity and using it for direct financial gain. They're stealing money from you. And the second part of this, a broader view, is they're getting jobs, employment, they're getting medical services. Someone can take an elder's Social Security number and have medical care, prescriptions, procedures done, tying that in with insurance fraud. Problem with that is not only the financial aspect of it, that person winds up at the ER, can't communicate, and those medical records all can be accessed by the ER physician. There may be diseases or procedures or conditions on there that aren't accurate because an identity thief has used that to submit a claim, and that can be life-threatening. And if you're working with seniors or with anybody, if you see them giving information that they don't have to or that they shouldn't, or if they're careless with their records, or if they're getting asked questions by people that are too intrusive, or they're asking for information that they don't have to give, that should be a red flag. Most doctors' offices, it's not an issue. It's just something that they do. And when I've gone to a new physician for whatever, and they have the form there, and I don't put my Social Security number down, and I'll ask, and I'll let them know why, and it's usually, okay, fine. They don't use it. But somebody in the back office or somewhere down the line can get that information and trade it as a commodity, and it can be very destructive. Unfortunately, the video here doesn't work. This young girl on the left is 12 years old in this picture. When her identity was taken, she was 3 years old. And the same principle could apply to a senior as it did to this young lady. And this is more the second view. Her Social Security number and other information was used for employment purposes. And you would think, well, maybe that's okay, that's kind of benign, and on the one hand it is. But typically, an individual will work under the Social Security number of somebody else for a year to year and a half, take the maximum number of exemptions, not paying income tax, and then they get a bill from the IRS or Franchise Tax Board, you owe all these back taxes. And then the person who used the Social Security number is gone. In this particular case, the individual had been paying the taxes. The family had fallen on hard times and had applied for public assistance benefits. And they were denied because they hadn't reported income that her daughter from the age 3 to 12 had been earning. You would think that Social Security or somebody would catch that she wasn't working at the mall in Escondido full time, but they didn't. So we had to go back and unwind that. And that can take some time. And same thing for a senior. If you can get your Social Security's income earning report, do that every year to see if you have income on there somewhere that you know you haven't worked. That could catch up with a young person or with a senior down the road when benefits are denied or they run into tax consequences, and there can be other problems that they wouldn't be aware of if that identity has gotten out there. I know I'm kind of blowing through this. If I'm not clear on something or if you have a question, I'd like to just keep it as casual as we can. Just raise your hand and we'll tackle it right away. Some of the areas that identity thieves will get your information. They'll steal a wallet out of your car. Mail theft is a very big one. If you put your mail out on the street and you put up the little sign that says "Steal me," it's probably going to happen. You need to get a mailbox for your incoming mail that drops down and is secure and locks with a key, so a thief can't take your mail out of that. They'll be looking for checks, for all the credit card ads that we get all the time. They'll grab those, sign up for a credit card in your name. Just go down the street and grab mail. On the outgoing side, the safest thing is to go into a post office and put the mail inside. Second best choice is a mailbox, but they will also fish mailboxes and take mail out. They'll take a rat trap, the sticky stuff, put it on the end of a fishing line. One person will kind of block the view. The other guy will throw it down into the mailbox, run it around, and they pull up mail. And then take it back and go through it for checks, anything personal that they can use. Computer security, you can kind of only do so much. I buy things online. I've had my credit card compromised 3 times. It's going to happen. It can happen anywhere. But you don't, keep your password secure, and you'll sometimes get these emails. Oddly enough, I got one yesterday saying Discover Card wanted to verify my billing information. They had the logo on there and everything. But if you look up at the URL, it's not coming from Discover. And they're not going to ask you that type of information. If there's one thing you can remember, is never give information unless you've initiated the call. If someone's calling you, don't give them any information. Always verify that with a call back. Does anybody know what skimming is? Have you been skimmed? Okay. Get this device. This is a skimmer. This is here where a credit card will go through. It's just about the size of your fingers. They actually make them now, they're called square-ups that'll fit on an iPhone. It's just like a little square. And retailers, legitimate retailers, will run the credit card through that. Well, a good thief will, at the restaurant, they're serving your food, take the bill, gas station, any retailer, and they'll just swipe that, put it right back in their pocket, and then download that information at the end of the day and they've got your credit card information. And your card information that they swiped can go on any magnetic card. Hotel key, Vons Club, you'll see racks of the gift cards at markets. They can take a stack of those and download your credit card information on it. No video there. These devices can be handheld, and they can also go on physical devices, primarily gasoline stations. The keys to the gas pumps are very easy to obtain. And a skimmer will normally go on the outside pumps. So what you want to do is when you fill up, go to the pumps closest to the station, the kiosk or the inside part, where they're more likely to have cameras. The outside pumps usually don't, so that's normally where they go. That is a very common spot. Paul Greenwood talked about green dot cards. They'll take your information and buy these green dot cards, which are essentially cash cards. They don't track them at all. It's just like currency. And typically, stolen credit card information will go to buy green dot cards, and there's really nothing you can do to track them down, unfortunately. Electronic pickpocketing. This is kind of an interesting one here. If you, on the back of some credit cards, now they have the ability to transfer that information without an actual swipe. It's electronic. You have a little symbol on the back of your card. It looks like sound waves going out. Passports have them. You can protect yourself by getting card cases that prevent that electronic transfer. But if you have those, you should probably get rid of them. We talked about the outgoing mail. Shredding documents. Don't just throw them in the trash. Burn them or shred them. Common in Escondido, methamphetamine addicts, they stay up all night, and they will rent a cheap hotel room, and they will go through reams of paper that they get out of the dumpsters, sometimes even putting together the single shredded columns of paper. Stay up for days doing this to get information. It's remarkable. Reviewing your credit report. You can get a free credit report once a year from each of the 3 credit reporting agencies. So get one every 4 months, one from each, and see if there are any accounts in there that you haven't opened. A couple of years back, someone in Los Angeles took out a mortgage in my name. They were paying it, which was odd. It helped me, but that's not me. How that got there, I have no clue. Never give information over the phone or the internet unless you initiate the contact. Phone spoofing. There's an application that you can buy that will fool caller ID. And I could say, well, I do a little bit of research, and I know that Dr. Mueller here, Mueller or Mueller? Mueller, excuse me. Banks at Wells Fargo. And so I spoofed the phone, and so I'm calling from Wells Fargo. I've got good news and bad news. Your account's been compromised, but we caught it. And so when you get your credit card statement next month, don't worry about all those charges. We're going to reverse them. And there's a formula that if I know where he was born and what hospital, I can come about 90% accurate for the first 5 numbers of his Social Security card. So I'll say, I want to make sure I'm talking to the right person here. I'm going to give you the first 5 of your social. You need to give me the last 4. And the last 4 are the harder ones to get. Makes sense? Sure. Here's the last 4. So now I've got a Social Security card, and I've got an extra month when he gets his credit card statement. Oh yeah, they called and said not to worry about these charges. Well, so that gives him a whole other billing cycle to drain his account. And phone spoofing can work both ways, incoming or outgoing. And a lot of what I do when I'm investigating something, I will call people on the phone, and they give me a lot of information where they shouldn't without verifying who I am. Occasionally, and it's great when they do it, someone will say, well, how do I really know you're with the cops? I said, well, you look up online or your phone book, look for the Escondido PD dispatch number and call it, ask if I work there, and have them transfer you to my desk. Don't take anybody's word for it when they're calling you. You always verify it independently, the number, and call them back. Same thing if I show up at your door. I'm with the Escondido Police Department. How do I know that? Occasionally you get that. Same thing. Why don't you call dispatch, you look up the number, ask if I work there. Yes, we've got an investigator, Tolstad. He's out on follow-up at 1500 East Grand, apartment 6. Okay, then you know. So always verify who you're talking to. Don't ever take an incoming call and give them information. Contact your credit card companies if you don't get a monthly statement. Someone's stolen your mail and they've got your credit card. Could be lost, but probably not. Keeping track of financial statements, credit card receipts, most of those only have a few digits on it now by law, but sometimes the older machines will have those. A lot of people carry their Social Security card with them. And again, I was talking with Dr. Mueller here earlier, and we were going over a little bit about what I was going to talk about, and he made a very perceptive comment. He said, everybody needs an advocate. And the group here has a good opportunity to be an advocate for the people that you're interacting with. And if you can pick up on some of the signs that the other speakers have spoken with, or any of this type of thing, and depending upon your relationship with that person, either communicating this to a family member or someone that they trust to oversee their financial situation. Double check their accounts, their credit card accounts, just making sure nothing's going on. I had a case last week where 83-year-old woman filed a crime case where she'd been defrauded out of some money on the lottery scam. And let's see if we can get this thing here. The lottery scam. It's classic. You probably get the emails. What was rare about this is that she reported the crime. Most people don't. As the other speakers have said, they're embarrassed. I don't want my kids to know. God, they're going to put me in a home. What a fool. And seniors are more vulnerable to some of these, particularly the romance scam, but not all. But it really transcends all age groups. The mystery shopper, in my experience, tends to be a younger victim. Anyway, in this lottery scam, the woman was told that she'd won the lotto, but to pay the mailing costs and whatever, you need to send $2,000 in cash put it inside a magazine and mail it to a P.O. box in LA. She did that. They came back, wanted another $2,000 on green dot cards, which she did. Then they wanted $20,000. She goes to the bank, and thank goodness the bank teller, why do you want the $20,000? She explained it, and they said, no, something's wrong here. And then, okay, she stopped. And then it could have been an APS referral, but it didn't come in that way, which is normally where we see those. But she came in and filed a crime case. And I went out to speak with her. Just the chances of getting that money back are slim and none. And Paul Greenwood made some comments on that too, and I want to just kind of give it a little bit different perspective. But I wanted to see what kind of shape she was in, kind of what was going on behind the scenes. And her husband had died a couple of years ago. Very sharp person. House was well kept. Really no issues of danger or debilitation. I asked her, her daughter lives in Texas, in Houston. And I asked if I could call her daughter and discuss this with her. And she said, sure, that'd be fine. And what I went over with her daughter was just some of these prevention tips. Get access to your mother's account. Look at her credit card transaction, her checking account statements, and you'll pick up on an oddity like that. Why is she withdrawing this cash? And you might have been able to catch that. So it's important to just have an advocate, somebody else, watching these things for anything out of the ordinary. This contact is in this brochure. These credit freezes or fraud alerts are very good. Nobody can open credit in your name without them contacting you. A couple of the scams, I'm going to get the hook here pretty soon. The work-at-home scam, you'll see this all over the place. This is more young people that fall for this. I had a young guy, a San Diego State graduate. I got two cases from other jurisdictions where credit card had been compromised and merchandise had been shipped to an address in Escondido, in a nice part of town. And then I get a third one, so something's up. I go to the house, really having nothing, knock on the door, young guy answers, and I say, gee, I'm following up on some stereo equipment that was sent here. Can you tell me anything about that? And he says, no, but you can tell by his face, he's like, uh-oh. And so I give him my card, and he says, oh, I'm just here on the weekend. I go to San Diego State. I said, well, have your parents give me a call when they get home if you would. By the time I got back to the station, he had left a message. Yeah, I kind of do know something about this. So I went back, and what happened was that he was having a hard time finding a job, saw this advertisement for a logistics person, and they wanted him to be a remailer. We're going to ship you merchandise for our customers who live out of the country. We'll send you the postage. We want you to package that stuff up and remail it. And we're looking for a warehouse in Escondido, but until we find one, can we use your garage? So, and so it was clear when we got there that he had got sucked into this thing. They had an application. He went through an interview process. They really did a good job. It looked very good. And his mother's there just hollering at him, I told you that was something wrong. And he says, well, I said, how long have you been doing this? He says, I shipped 3 or 4 shipments. And then I got a little suspicious. Well, his garage was full of merchandise. And it was, all being shipped out of the country to the UK, into the Middle East, but he kind of wised up, so he had a whole garage full of stuff that we impounded and got back to the rightful businesses. But so it isn't. One of the speakers, I think it was Dr. Tam, said, "Yeah, being susceptible to scams, you don't have to have a dementia or any type of diminished capacity." The romance scam, very common. That is usually with older people. I had a gentleman call, he was 79, wanting to know how he could verify that someone actually worked for Interpol that had contacted him. I said, I have no idea. What's going on? He says, well, I got involved with this Asian social club. It's okay. A while back, and they cleaned out my bank account. I said, okay. And there was almost about a year ago, and now I got a call that Interpol is on the case and they're working it. I said, okay. I said, do they want your current account information? He says, yeah, because they want to track the money. I said, did you give it to them? No. I said, well, don't. They're coming back for another bite at the apple. They just want your account information again. They're very good at conning people. The overpayment scam, if you're selling something online and they mail you too much money. Oh gosh, it was $1,000 or $100, we sent you $2,000 over. Can you just send a check back to my friend over in Vista? Sure, no problem. You send the check off, well, lo and behold, the original payment is returned because it's a counterfeit check or a counterfeit money order, and then you're out the money. And that one's not age specific either, but I have seen a lot of seniors get taken for that, where they're selling something. I'm going to get the hook here in just a minute. So this mortgage scams is another big one. Very quickly, ATM machines, you probably all use these. These are skimming devices on an ATM machine. What this does is, as you put in your card, it collects the card information. And then, in addition to that, this is a bogus one. You want to look for the LED lights, although they've gotten better and can actually substitute that. Before you put your card in there, give these things a good smack, yank it, see if you can take it off of there. If it's a skimmer, it's going to pop off. There's one that looks awful bit like that, but it's going to stick out a little bit, and you could actually pop it off. Go through these. There's a pinhole camera up at the top always that collects your PIN number. And then they'll match, this is the collecting device, they'll match your card information up with the PIN number. Boy. This actually, this little box here, they put this on, and here's the pinhole camera there. I can give you some stories. Just the nicest lady who was 87 that got taken on something like this from a healthcare provider, but I'm out of time. I'll just end real quickly. Paul Greenwood talked about that FBI ID scam. And when I give these presentations, sometimes I'll ask at the beginning, hey, how do you know I'm a police officer? Well, you've got a badge and you've got a gun, which is true, but a crook can get a badge that looks an awful lot like this. And a crook can put a gun on their belt. What you want to look for or ask for is the department ID that a legitimate person is going to have. It's going to be somewhat like a license with the picture and the department logo or badge on there. And you could say, that guy looks a little bit younger, I don't know. Then you call the station and verify it. But they're always going to have an ID. It's not just going to be a badge. It's not just going to be something that a con person can get. And as he pointed out, they'll show up on a door to somebody who's vulnerable and say, I'm with the police. Yes, sir.
Could you ask an officer to provide your ID so you can match the names? Maybe you just have one.
I wouldn't give it to you. I would say call the station. If I can't imagine where somebody legitimate would do that. If they were good, they'll have a driver's license or something else with the bogus name on it, if they were thinking ahead. But that's a good question. I would always verify it. If you have any suspicion at all, call the substation for the sheriff or whatever PD it is that you're working with, or if they said FBI, call the FBI or call your local police and have them come out. Say, I don't think this doesn't smell right. Question? Okay.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is your stance about having your clients use Craigslist to find help and all of that? I think one of our speakers brought up Craigslist. And I know we have a colleague in the audience, Sydney, who has counseled several families about be wary of hiring people off of Craigslist.
Absolutely. And I'm not giving legal advice, but there's some issues between an independent contractor versus you hiring somebody as an employee, liability and insurance and that type of thing. But having someone in your home, in fact, Professor Depp mentioned it, you're very vulnerable when you have a caregiver in your home. Had a woman, mid-80s, broke her hip, had surgery, transitioned to a convalescent hospital, then intermediate care, came home, but needed help. Hired a company, healthcare worker through the company, which worked out fine, and they got along real well. And then to cut corners, the healthcare provider said, well, you know what, you're paying the company X, you could only, if you pay me directly, it'll only be Y, and it'll save you some money, and then I don't have to, then I'll make a little bit more. So somebody's dishonest right off the bat. Well, what she would do, she would drive her to doctor's offices, the bank, and whatever. And when she went to the bank to withdraw money, she would shoulder surf and got her PIN number. Put her to bed at night, go into her purse, take out the ATM card, and then she'd go out and ripped her off about $18,000 over a 2-month period. And the victim didn't know until she went to the bank and, where's my money? And then we backtracked it from that, and we're able to show that the caregiver, we had no clue when we started where she had lost her
And then now
her
the
card.
caregivers can go and file unemployment against the families. Have you heard that?
That's a good, I doubt it, because she's a convicted felon now.
Oh,
but
yeah, that.
I would hope not, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. So.
All right. Well,
Great. Thank you for your
Scott,
attention.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And here's a gift.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.